You don't seemingly like your own character, so she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
Something wrong with her. She's disturbed, she's unhappy, and she thinks it's about feminism and the patriarchy and about abortion. The reality is she's just not stable, like the majority of people in Hollywood. They're just not stable human beings.
Not hold back.
Now, tell me exactly what it is you're afraid of.
I keep having the same dream. Everywhere I look, people are being replaced.
Okay, and who do you think is going to have you replaced?
Them. The puppet masters. The last time I had the dream, I was walking down the school hallway. And then I see Butters, and he's like, "Hey, Eric, you want to see what my mom packed me for lunch?" And that's when I start to notice that something's wrong. Everyone I cared about has been systematically replaced. And finally, I want to scream, and I'm like, why are they replacing every single character with someone who is diverse?
Insanity. Insanity is someone lighting a fire, then acting shocked when the whole house goes up in flames. Yeah, that's basically Rachel Zegler right now. Because what started as a bold, modern reboot of Snow White quickly spiraled into one of Disney's biggest PR disasters, and then South Park showed up with gasoline and a blowtorch. But that's not all. This isn't just about a bad movie. It's about a billion-dollar studio losing touch, a lead actress caught in a storm she helped create, and a cartoon that saw the train wreck and decided to make it legendary. First, Disney's Snow White remake was already hanging by a thread. Fans were skeptical, the marketing was a mess, and Rachel Zegler's interviews were only adding fuel to the fire. But then it got crazier. South Park came along and casually dropkicked the whole thing off a cliff, with their signature, "We don't care if you're offended" energy. Classic. While Rachel was still scrambling to clean up the mess from her own comments and Disney's PR blunders, South Park showed up like the final boss of satire. They roasted the entire Snow White remake and Rachel Zegler so savagely that it left Disney looking like someone hit reply all on a company-wide meltdown. But listen to this. The internet didn't just laugh, they agreed. This wasn't just comedy. It was a full-blown takedown of what fans felt was corporate pandering at its worst. And this doesn't end with a few memes and late-night jokes. South Park didn't just torch Snow White. They're reportedly gearing up for a brand new DI-themed special. It gets worse. This time, the fallout from Disney's failed remake might become the centerpiece of a second round of satire. If you thought the first roast was brutal, brace yourself. But to understand why South Park went all in, we need to rewind a bit. Disney's been having a full-on identity crisis. Between remakes, reboots, and reimagining every classic, their recent moves scream, "Please like us." The reason this is happening? They've been reshuffling characters, rewriting plots, and turning childhood favorites into awkward Pinterest fails. Snow White was just the latest casualty. From the beginning, this remake raised eyebrows. Casting Rachel Zegler, a Latina actress, as Snow White, a character literally named for her skin being as white as snow, was bound to spark debate. But that wasn't the only thing. Disney gutted the romance plot, removed the prince almost entirely, and replaced the iconic Seven Dwarfs with a random group of diverse CGI companions. Fans were left asking, what even is this movie? That's when South Park dropped Joining the Panderverse, a special that didn't just poke fun at diversity. It mocked Hollywood's obsession with checking boxes instead of telling real stories. It gets better, or worse, depending on your angle. The show reimagined characters like Cartman as adult women of color, parodying Disney's casting habits and drawing a line from Snow White to every recent corporate diversity first, story second decision. South Park's message was brutal. Congrats, Disney. You pandered so hard, you forgot to entertain. And right in the middle of it all? Rachel Zegler. And she didn't help her case. Instead of leaning into the legacy of Snow White, she trashed the original in interviews. She called the story outdated and the prince a red flag. She even told people who disagreed not to see the movie. Imagine landing one of the most iconic roles in film history and then immediately throwing shade at the character and fans. That's what Rachel did. And South Park was taking notes. They turned her comments into roast material so sharp it left critics and fans speechless. And then there were the dwarves. Disney tried to dodge controversy by cutting the classic characters only to get slammed for it. So they added them back in using CGI, which made it worse. Seriously, you can't make this up. It looked like a desperate attempt to course correct while still trying to look progressive. And South Park turned it into comedy gold. You'd think Disney would have learned after the Little Mermaid remake. That movie had backlash too, but at least it stuck closer to the original story. Snow White, on the other hand, unrecognizable. It felt like a reboot for the sake of headlines, not for fans. So when South Park saw Rachel giving interviews about cutting the love story and gutting the prince's role, they couldn't resist. They basically turned her quotes into a public service announcement. If you hate the story this much, maybe don't star in it. Behind the scenes, Disney went into panic mode. Rumors started swirling that they even tried contacting South Park's parent company to tone things down. But if there's one thing we know about South Park, trying to silence them only makes them go harder. Remember how they handled Scientology and Tom Cruise? This is what they do. Now the next roast is reportedly on the way. South Park is said to be working on another DI special dropping as soon as August, and Snow White's failure is expected to be front and center. And trust me, they're just getting started. They've got Rachel's interviews, Disney's disastrous edits, and a box office bomb to work with. It's an all-you-can-roast buffet. So how is Rachel handling all this? Not great. Insiders say she's furious behind the scenes. She expected applause, not headlines about ruining a classic. And South Park's roast didn't just hurt. It made her the face of everything fans say is wrong with modern reboots. She's reportedly annoyed that people think she only got the role to check a box. And South Park poking fun at her didn't just pour salt in the wound, it dumped the whole shaker. And let's not forget Disney's decision to swap out the Seven Dwarfs for whatever that CGI mess was. Gone were the charming, distinct characters we all grew up with, replaced by a random mix of diverse friends who looked like they'd just wandered in from a failed Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Fans felt like Disney was trying too hard to avoid controversy, only to land smack in the middle of it. And, of course, South Park ran with this. They mocked Disney for gutting classics to avoid offending anyone while, ironically, offending everyone. The backlash was so bad that Disney had to reshoot and add the dwarves back in using CGI. But that stirred up even more controversy. Now, it's not just a PR crisis. It's a full-blown cultural moment. Fans are watching Disney like hawks, waiting to see if they'll course correct or double down. By now, Disney's executives were panicking. They know that when South Park takes aim, it's not just a joke. The jokes stick. So, rumors started swirling that Disney even tried reaching out to South Park's parent company to tone things down. Spoiler alert, that never works. When you try to hush South Park, it only adds rocket fuel to the fire. Remember when they roasted Scientology? Yeah, they thrived on that drama. And just when you think it couldn't get any worse for Disney, South Park is reportedly cooking up a brand new DI special. And it's coming soon. This time, they're planning to use Snow White's box office flop as fuel for another savage roast. So, how is Rachel handling all of this? Not well. Insiders claim she's fuming behind the scenes. She expected applause for bringing a bold, modern twist to Snow White, but instead, she's getting roasted. Not just by critics and fans, but by the most savage cartoon on television. And the worst part? People are saying she only got the role to check a diversity box. That's gotta sting. Between Disney's fumbling PR plays, Rachel's fiery interviews, and South Park's savage Pandaverse special, it all collided into a glorious Hollywood meltdown. And fans are loving every second of it. So what now? Will Disney learn from this disaster and go back to telling timeless stories with heart? Or will they keep modernizing until there's nothing left to modernize? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, if South Park is roasting you, you probably messed up somewhere along the way.